Hello everyone, this is Ashley Tucker. Thank you for joining me today. For today's card, I'm going to be using a couple of older stamp sets. This first one that I'm using is the Thanks a Bushel stamp set by Lon Fawn. And the second one that I pulled out is the Which Way is the Candy stamp set by My Favorite Things. So in my MISTI, I have a piece of Bristol smooth paper, and I'm going to be stamping some of the apples from the Lon Fawn stamp set and the pumpkins from the My Favorite Things stamp set. I used my Simon Says stamp Intense Black ink to stamp these. I did end up stamping the apple and the two pumpkins twice because I want a whole bunch of them for the scene that I'm going to be creating. I'm going to be coloring all of these in with my Arteza Real brush pens. I'm going to have all of the color names up in the corner in case you're curious about what color I'm using. So as you can probably tell, I was really in the mood to do a fall themed card when I was designing this. I miss fall. I cannot wait for it to be fall. I'm getting a little tired of the really hot, humid weather that we've been having. It's been so humid every day, and I just want that crisp, cool air, and I want to wear sweaters and jeans and boots, and I want to drink hot drinks and smell pumpkin spice, and I just really want it to be fall. The thing that's a little weird with doing a fall card though is I'm about to get the August Simon Says stamp kit. I think it's supposed to arrive tomorrow, and that kit is in no way fall themed with the mermaids and the water and everything. It's going to be a big jump from this fall card to go to that, but oh well, I wanted to do a fall card, and I'm going to want to do mermaid cards when I get that, because when I saw that kit, I was ecstatic. I love mermaids. I cannot wait. Anyways, as for the coloring on this, I'm doing what I usually do when I color with my Arteza markers. I lay down the marker in the areas that I want to be the most shadowed, and then I blend it out with my water brush. Speaking of my water brush, in case you didn't know, I actually don't use the water brush the way that it's intended. I don't ever put any water inside my water brush. I'm not very good with water brushes. I never really got the hang of it. The reason that I use my water brush is because I really like the brush on it. My water brush has a really fine point on it. This is the Tim Holtz water brush detailer, and I really like that fine point. I find that I get really good control, and I can get really small areas really well. And instead of putting water in it like you would with a normal water brush, I spray some water onto a clear block, and then I just pick it up like I would with a regular paintbrush. All that being said, this is just what works best for me personally. I know a lot of people that find water brushes really easy to work with, so I would say try it both ways and see which way works best for you. For the leaves on the apples, I didn't do any blending with the water. Those leaves are really small, and for really tiny areas, I don't find it necessary to blend with the water. For the pumpkins, my first idea was to color all of them the same way, like I did with the apples. But as I was coloring the first one, I thought to myself, what if I colored all of them slightly different? That way they'd be a little bit more realistic. Because, you know, in real life, not all pumpkins are going to be exactly the same shade of orange. So I decided to challenge myself and make each of the 4 pumpkins slightly different. I still have them all as orange pumpkins. I didn't stray from the orange family, but they're all slightly different color oranges. I'm really glad that I ended up trying to do that because I really like the way that the pumpkins turned out in the end. And actually, it really made me wish that I had done the same kind of thing with the apples. I could have totally done some yellow apples and some green apples and some red green apples, but I also really didn't want to start over, so those are ideas for next time. Instead of completely starting over, my solution to make me happy with the apples was to pull out a colored pencil and try to add a little bit of green to some of the apples. So this color is PC 913, and I just put a very small amount of it on the apples. It didn't do a whole lot. I probably could have skipped it, but it's what I did. Now I have a piece of Canson watercolor paper taped down to a board, and I'm using my Arteza markers again, but I'm using them a little bit differently. This is the color Ginger, and I scribbled it onto a palette, and I'm picking it up with my paintbrush so that I can paint it onto my paper. I added a lot of water for that first layer. When I work with watercolors, I like to start really light and then build up my color. After the first layer was dry, I came back in with the same color and I darkened up the bottom of the paper. This next color that I'm using is the color Chocolate, and I'm going to be adding that to the bottom of the paper as well. After adding a layer of that color, I'm going to come in with a much smaller brush and add some little line details. The reason that I'm painting mostly at the bottom of this paper is because this is going to be a background for the images that I just colored. I really want those images to look like they're sitting on the ground. So I'm painting this to look like the dirt that you might find on the ground of like a farm where you just got your apple picking done and you're about to pick out your pumpkins at the pumpkin patch. After I painted that piece, I have all of the pieces of my card ready to put together. I used my ATG gun to adhere a piece of red cardstock to a card base. I then took the watercolor background that I made and I glued it to a piece of dark gray cardstock, which is just slightly bigger so that there's just a little bit of a border around the edge. I used a bunch of foam tape to pop that panel up onto my card base, and that foam tape is going to help to straighten out any warping that might have happened when I painted the watercolor background. Next, I used my Tombow glue to add the 4 pumpkins to my background. Before I started gluing these down, I did figure out my layout. I didn't just start laying them down randomly. I knew exactly where I wanted to place them before I started gluing. Once the 4 pumpkins were glued down, I took my basket of apples and I'm going to pop those up with some foam tape right in the middle. I also popped up the other 2 apples with some foam tape and I placed one on either side of the basket. Next, I took a white gel pen and I added some highlights to all of my images. I find that doing this is really easy, but it makes such a big difference. It adds so much to the card. Next, I'm going to add some more details to the ground with my colored pencils. This first color that I'm using is PC 946. So with this color, I'm just adding some drop shadows underneath all of my images. The next color that I used is PC 947. I added some texture with this color and deepened up the shadows. The last color that I used is the PC 943, and I used this color to mostly blend those first 2 colors and to extend the drop shadow a little bit. Now I'm going to work on the sentiment. I took a piece of dark gray cardstock and I prepped it with my powder tool for some heat embossing. I used a stamp from the Lawn Fawn set, which says "Thanks a Bushel," and I stamped it with Versamark ink, and then I heat embossed it in a white embossing powder. I used my tonic trimmer to cut the sentiment down into a strip, and then I popped it up on my card using some foam tape, and then this card was all done. Thank you for watching today. I hope you really enjoyed this fall-themed thank you card. All of the supplies that I used today can be found in the description down below. If you enjoyed watching and you have not subscribed to my channel yet, I would encourage you to hit the subscribe button so that you can see all of my future videos. I'm going to be back with a new video on Wednesday. Again, thank you for watching. I appreciate all of you and I hope you have a great day today.